I am continuing my journey through the complete Stories of Oz book, and I'm up to Little Wizard Stories of Oz. Right, so some background. Uh, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I actually bought this book a number of years ago. It's been sitting on my shelf for a long time. Uh, And when I bought it, I was excited that all the L. Frank Baum stories, Wizard of Oz stories, were in one volume. And I had never actually read the stories before, but I knew because I spend too much time on Wikipedia, I knew that L. Frank Baum had written 14 Oz stories before he died, and then other writers had continued on with the series until there was a what they call the famous 40 canonical Oz stories. It's all on Wikipedia. So when I found this in the bookstore, I bought it and I was counting through the number of stories in here, and I counted up to 15. I thought 15, okay, but L. Frank Baum only wrote 14 Oz books. And then by just going through the titles and checking with Wikipedia, I discovered that there is included in this collection a little Oz novella, a little booklet that's not quite a full Oz book, but was something that was published by L. Frank Baum during his lifetime, and it's included here, Little Wizard Stories of Oz. So what are Little Wizard Stories of Oz? L. Frank Baum had an ambition to write other things besides the Oz stories. And after book number 6, The Emerald City of Oz, he attempted to finish the series. The Emerald City of Oz, as I talked about in my review, tries to wrap everything up and says, okay, now Oz is totally cut out from the outside world. There are no more stories. Sorry, children. Everybody lived happily ever after, but there are no more stories. Then he went bankrupt, I think in 1911. Again, it's on Wikipedia if you look up L. Frank Baum's biography. Went bankrupt, had to sell everything, was desperate for more money, and revived the Oz stories in 1913. So I think that's, and I think he tried to end the series in 1910, so I guess 3 years later. Because he had tried to do other series, but his other series hadn't sold as well. So he needed to get back into the money-making stuff, which was Oz. So he released The Patchwork Girl of Oz in 1913. But also in 1913, I guess he and his publishers decided to release a number of mini-stories to gin up interest in the Oz books again. And Wikipedia says that these were targeted at younger readers. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that means. I mean, what age is an Oz reader anyways? Pretty young, right? They're children's books. I don't know, 8, 9, 7. What age is a younger reader that we're targeting? I don't know. But when you actually read through the stories in the Little Wizard Stories of Oz, the prose doesn't actually seem any different than the normal Oz stories. Now, the edition I have here, as a consequence of putting everything in one volume, there's no pictures. But if you look this book up, and Project Gutenberg has a very good copy on their website, which I'll try to remember to link in the description down below. The original copy was nice big print and big, colorful, full color illustrations. So lots of pictures and stuff like that. So I guess that would appeal to younger children. Although the Oz books generally are even the normal Oz books are usually pretty generously illustrated. I don't know. But so he released 6 mini stories, I guess, over 1913, 1914. And then they were later collected into one volume called Little Wizard Stories of Oz. Now, in this book here, all 6 stories together make up 23 pages. So not a lot of page counts. But again, if you were to buy the original book or a reprint of the original book, it would have like really big prints, like the type of print that you have in storybooks for young children, and a lot of, again, big illustrations. It looks like some full spread illustrations across both pages. Yeah, sorry, lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? The page count. And I think it comes like to 192 pages or 156 pages or something. I see different page numbers depending on where I've checked. I've checked like the Project Gutenberg, and I've checked the copies on Amazon. But with no illustrations and with just normal size print, it only makes up 23 pages. So this is not one of the canonical Oz books. This is a little extra book. When I first, actually, this is a little bit of a tangent. When I first realized that there was a little extra book included in this volume, aside from the 14 canonical books, I got a little bit excited. I thought, all right, when they said complete, they meant complete. It's got all 14 canonical books plus an extra book. And I thought this was the absolute complete edition. But I've been discovering as I've been reading these and been researching them on Wikipedia that actually this isn't anywhere near complete. There's a whole Oz extended universe out there. There were some publications that were spin-offs of the Marvelous Land of Oz. There were L. Frank Baum's other series, which he tied in to the Land of Oz series. So in that respect, it's nowhere close to being complete. But it does have Little Wizard Stories of Oz, which is, I guess, a little bonus here. Not one of the canonical books, although Wikipedia says it's sometimes considered an unofficial 15th book. I would say an unofficial 7.5 book, because if you say it's 15, then you're saying it comes at the very end. But actually, this one was published, I guess, at the same time as book number 7, The Patchwork Girl of Oz, and I believe before book number 8, The TikTok of Oz. Anyways, it's got 6 stories. The first one is The Cowardly Lion and the Hungry Tiger. The second one, yes. Should I talk about these? Actually, let me list them first, and then I'll decide what to talk about. Second one is Little Dorothy and Toto. Third one is TikTok and the Gnome King. Then Ozma and the Little Wizard. Then Jack Pumpkinhead and the Sawhorse. And then the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman. And those are the 6 stories that make this up. Okay, let's talk about the title first of all. Little Wizard Stories of Oz. What does that even mean? Does that mean Little Wizard Stories of Oz? Wizard Stories of Oz? I mean, it doesn't seem to be entirely grammatical. But it turns out, I guess, that Little Wizard is referring to the Wizard of Oz. Now, the Wizard of Oz has gone through a few different evolutions throughout this series. In book number 1, he is just as you remember him from the movie. He's a guy from Kansas or Omaha or something like that, who gets stranded in Oz on a hot air balloon. He's a circus performer or a magician who's able to fool the people of Oz with illusions. Then Dorothy and her friends come to him for help, and it's just exactly the same as the movie. He's a trickster, he's an illusionist, but he's not a bad guy. In book 2, he becomes the bad guy. But and there was a bit of a retcon going on where it turns out he had always been a bad guy in Oz. Apparently this was based on a stage play that L. Frank Baum also wrote, or L. Frank Baum was incorporating changes into his series to align it with a stage play that he also wrote. But the audience didn't like that. The readers didn't like that. So in book 4, he comes back again, and he's just the same as he was in book 1. He's a good guy. He's good at heart. He's a trickster, but he's a stage magician. He's an illusionist. Then in books 6 and 7, we find out that he actually has real magical powers now. Glinda, the good witch, has been teaching him her magic. I'm not sure why. Was it ever explained why? She was just teaching him the magic. Which to me felt like it was ruining the character a bit. But I suppose L. Frank Baum maybe felt it was a little bit awkward to have a character in this series called the Wizard of Oz, who wasn't actually a wizard. I mean, it worked for the first book, but eventually you're going to have to say, okay, either he's got some real powers, or we can't call him the wizard anymore. So they gave him some real powers. Now, all of a sudden with this collection, he's being called the Little Wizard, which I don't think was in any of the previous books. Oh, no. I'm wrong. Sorry, I was just flipping back to the previous book, and it is calling him the Little Wizard in the previous book. Okay, so in book 7 as well, he's being called the Little Wizard. But I don't think he was ever called the Little Wizard in the 6th book. Let me check on that one. Yeah, I don't think for books 1 to 6 he was ever called the Little Wizard. But somewhere along the way he got the name the Little Wizard. So they call him the Little Wizard in this collection. But although it is, the way they spell it, it's where's a good example? So it's always like the Little Wizard. Here's an example. Is this going to show up on camera? This is always the way it is. So the, not capitalized. Little, not capitalized. Wait, what am I pointing at? Okay, sorry. The Little Wizard. So, apologies. I'm not sure this is focusing. So, the and little aren't capitalized, but the wizard is always capitalized, even though they always refer to him as the Little Wizard. But then in the title, it's just called Little Wizard Stories of Oz, not The Little Wizard. I guess we'll see if he continues to be the Little Wizard through the rest of the Oz series, or if that's just that moniker gets dropped eventually. I'm not sure. Okay, so each of these stories is about 4 pages long, and that's pages counting both sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. Two pieces of paper. Some of them are 5, but I think most of them are just 4 pages. Although again, if you get the original book, it's much longer because it's big print and illustrated. The first one is The Cowardly Lion and the Hungry Tiger. They decide that they're not getting respected enough at the palace. People aren't afraid of them. So they devise a plan where the Cowardly Lion's going to tear someone to shreds and the Hungry Tiger's going to eat a baby. And And then, of course, they don't follow through on it because it was all an act. They're both in reality much too kind-hearted to hurt any innocent people. I felt as I was reading this that even the idea that they would try to put on this act seemed out of character for these characters. But I don't know. They've gotten so little characterization in this series so far that it's a bit difficult to say, really. And besides, there have been so many inconsistencies in this series. Where do you even start, huh? I mean, no use getting upset about it now. The thought has occurred to me recently that perhaps it was just a different time back in 1913 or 1900 when the series began. Maybe people obviously... Sorry, I shouldn't say obviously. I've only got one data set that I'm working off of. But perhaps people didn't care as much about continuity. There wasn't quite as much of a nerd culture as there is today. I don't know, but there are all sorts of continuity mismatches in the Oz series. Next one is Little Dorothy and Toto. So Dorothy and Toto go exploring. They get captured by a giant, but it turns out it was just the Little Wizard of Oz trying to teach her a lesson. Next is Tick-Tock and the Gnome King. So speaking of continuity problems, this is arguably a continuity problem because the last time we saw the Gnome King, he had his memory erased by Ozma's magic fountain. So this is arguably a continuity problem, except it is not clear whether or not this book is in continuity. It's not one of the canonical Oz books. And even if it is in continuity, it's not clear when it takes place. Maybe it had taken place before the Gnome King lost his memory, or I don't know. Next is Ozma and the Little Wizard. This is Ozma and the Wizard of Oz off together. Next is Jack Pumpkinhead and the Sawhorse. They're rescuing some children in the woods who have been tied up by the squirrels because the children ate their nuts. And then the little wizard comes in at the end to save the day. Next is Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman. So Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman go in a boat. Tin Woodman falls out, and because he's made of tin, he sinks, I guess. Then he rusts up. Dane Cobain pointed out way back in his review of the first book, or no, maybe it was in the comments. He pointed out somewhere that tin actually doesn't rust. So this whole conceit about the Tin Woodman rusting up all the time doesn't even make sense. But that's the way the Tin Woodman works. Every time you get him wet, he rusts up. They get helped by some crows who seem to think fondly of the Scarecrow because they remember the days when the Scarecrow was hung up in the field, and apparently the Scarecrow didn't bother them much or didn't try to deceive them into making them think he was really a person. Now, if memory serves, in the original book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the Scarecrow did break the necks of 40 crows, right? When they were fighting against the Wicked Witch. But I guess that's all been forgotten about. So the crows help him, but then they get mischievous, so they leave them in trouble. And then the little wizard shows up again and helps him out. There are more details, but you don't need me to go over the details. You can just look at the stories yourself. They're so quick to read. And that's it. I think that's everything to talk about here, huh? So, right. Dane, doing this series as a buddy reads with Dane Cobain over at Dane Reads. He may be posting his review of this a little bit later because there was a little bit of a mix-up about whether we were going to do this book or not, because it's in my collection, but it's not really one of the canonical books. He did post a written review on his website, and I'll link to his written review down below. He said something to the effect of it supposedly was written for children, but I didn't really notice any difference in style myself. And I go along with that. I don't think I noticed any difference in writing style myself either. Um, these Oz stories, the whole series, the books in the series are so episodic anyways. They go along the road, they encounter an adventure, they keep going along the road, they encounter another adventure. It seems like a very natural transition to just do short stories about little random adventures that get encountered. Although, actually, now that I think about it, some of these stories, like the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman, I don't really imagine that one being inside of a larger novel so much. Some of these stories, like Dorothy getting caught by the giant, you could easily imagine that as just one episode in an Oz novel. But the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman, that one actually seems like it has a fair amount of charm in and of itself that maybe you wouldn't find in a normal Oz book. Sorry, I lost my train of thought again. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Dane. If he comes back and does a video review of this, I'll update the links in my description down below. So check that out. Otherwise, I'll just post a review to his written review of this, which is very short, but I think sums up my views on this as well. And yes, I'll finish off here.